Dan Nguyen. I'm the president of Canadian Ethnic Media Association. It is an honor for me to have the privilege to welcome the Premier of Ontario, the Right Honourable Dalton McGuinty, to the April meeting of the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. As you all know, Premier McGuinty had always been a friend and supporter of the ethnic media. As the publisher of Toi Bao, a Vietnamese language newspaper in Toronto for 25 years, I have had many opportunities to meet with the Premier McGuinty. I have learned a great deal from the Premier through our meetings and through interviews that I have done with him for the past years. He is a man of honor and integrity. Many Ontarians are of the opinion that Mr. McGuinty had accomplished a great deal to assist us through the tough recession time, economic times. The members of the Canadian Ethnic Media Association gathered here this evening are very much interested to hear about the Premier's plans for the future of our great province, Ontario. At this time, I'd like to introduce our chair, Marlene Gignac, who is a recipient of the Order of Ontario and the Order of Canada, to do the honors of introducing the Premier of Ontario. Marlene.
Thank you. It's my privilege to once again introduce formally Dalton McGuinty, although I know that he's a friend of all of yours, but we do need to do a formal introduction. The Premier is Ontario's 24th Premier and was first elected to the Ontario Legislature in 1990. That long ago?
That long ago.
He became
I was 16.
Yeah. He became leader of the Ontario Liberal Party in 1996, and he led his party to a majority government in 2003. He was also re-elected to a second majority government in October 2007. In 2011, he also led the Ontario Liberal Party to a historic third mandate, the first time a Liberal Premier has done so in 125 years. Dalton, as we know, was raised in Ottawa's Alta Vista neighborhood, one of 10 children. Really appreciated his parents' upbringing. I know that your mother was a nurse, because my mother was a nurse, and you talked about that at one time with my mother. And Dalton McGuinty practiced law in Ottawa, and he met his wife, Terry, one of Canada's greatest love stories, when they were both in high school and students in Ottawa. They have been married ever since 1980, and of course have 4 wonderful children. It's our honor to have Mr. McGuinty here to address the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. This is a very contemporary and relevant association for Canada's third pillar of media, the multilingual media in Ontario, in essence multimedia in Canada, and in fact, no boundaries, multilingual media in North America. So we may have some tough questions for you, but I'm sure you can handle this group. And without further ado, I'd like you to address this group in an intimate editorial board session.
Great. Thank you very much, Madeline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dad, thank you as well for your opening remarks and to both of you for the responsibilities you've taken on here at the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, which I think is a very important organization, not just for those that you serve directly, but for all of us, and I'll return to that in a moment. I understand that you normally meet today, but you moved the meeting hour in order to accommodate me, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much. I hope that you're very much looking forward to a wonderful weekend. You're going to have lovely weather. Not many Canadians know this, but under the Canadian Constitution, bad weather is a federal responsibility. And good weather is a provincial responsibility. Just want to make that clear. I want to thank all of you for the work that you do, for the businesses that you build, the risks you take, the jobs you create for yourselves and for many others. A long time ago, somebody, in fact a former U.S. president, once said, if I had to choose between a country with no government and a country with no newspapers, I would choose a country with newspapers, because nothing is more important than a well-informed and engaged population. So I thank you for informing your communities and engaging them in important issues every day. When you do this, you're helping us build a strong, diverse society. As you know, we are privileged to live here together in Ontario and in Canada. And with that privilege comes responsibility. And that responsibility is to keep making progress and to prove to the world every single day that at our best, we human beings can find strength and advantage in our diversity. And speaking of the world, you and I live in an information age where people can go to the internet and see what's happening everywhere around the world. But people really want to know what's happening right here in their communities. So people count on you for local stories that they can't get anywhere else. And again, I thank you for taking on that responsibility and for delivering it so well. It's been a tough global recession. Ontarians came together, overcame challenges, and we kept moving forward. Now we're taking strong action to balance the budget, eliminate a $16 billion deficit so we can grow the economy and create jobs. The good news is that we have a strong plan, and I'm talking about our budget. Our plan will bring us to balance by 2017-2018. It protects those public services that we have to be able to count on, our schools and our health care. It builds a strong foundation for new growth and new jobs. In fact, our budget commits to 170,000 jobs. Our budget will maintain our standing as the lowest per capita spender in the country. Among the 10 provinces, nobody spends less on a per capita basis than we do here in Ontario. We have the fewest civil servants per capita in the country. Our budget provides for modest increases for health and education, because again, those are the most important priorities for our families. We do not cut social assistance. You may recall that the last government, when confronted with a difficult economy, cut social assistance by 22%. We also remain committed to increasing the Ontario Child Benefit. We will not balance the budget on the backs of our most vulnerable. Other government programs will see no increases. Some areas will see reductions, like our subsidy for horse racing in Ontario. We've been paying on an annual basis about $345 million to subsidize the horse racing industry. If we have to choose between good schools, good health care, and subsidies for the horse racing industry, you know where our choice is. The opposition will see their ideas reflected in our budget, and we remain open to make the budget even better. I've often said that in governments do all kinds of good things, but they do nothing perfectly, because governments are made up entirely of human beings, with all of our strengths and all of our failings. So I've made it clear to the opposition that we are open to any ideas that they want to put forward, but we will not consider proposals that threaten the gains that we've made together in our hospitals and our schools, and we will not move ahead with new spending or unsustainable subsidies. The economy is still fragile, but we're seeing some very encouraging signs of growth. You may have heard just this morning, Ontario created 46,000 new jobs last month. Our unemployment rate has fallen again to 7.4%. Since the recession, Ontario has created more jobs than the 9 other provinces combined. Ontario continues to produce things the world wants to buy. Our main source of growth remains our external trade. Auto sales are at the strongest they've been in 22 years. So we're moving in the right direction, and we have momentum. But the economy is still a bit fragile. Now is not the time for the PCs and the NDP to force a costly, unnecessary election. What Ontario needs right now, what our economy needs right now, what families, Ontario businesses, and the international investment community need right now are predictability, certainty, and stability when it comes to our economy and our future. We need those kinds of things that inspire confidence in our province. That's what our strong plan found in our budget is all about. Again, I want to thank you for informing Ontarians and improving our understanding of the real challenges and the great opportunities before us. So I'll stop there. I'll be pleased to entertain any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. questions, and Premier, you're available until 7, or what's your?
Who's my boss?
I think we have a bit of time right now. The Premier does have a commitment later on this evening,
All right.
20-25 minutes or so, and then we
Okay.
can go from there.
So if we can, please, as you know, please state your name and your media affiliation, so Premier and staff can get a sense of the breadth and the depth of the membership here. Peter.
I have a question about gas prices. My wife works in the United States, in New Jersey. They have less than 90 cents per liter. How do you have any explanation of the gap between these prices?
I earned the privilege of beginning to serve Ontarians in the legislature 21 years ago. It'll be 22 years shortly. We've talked about gas prices and the challenge they presented to our economy and to consumers and to drivers for 21 years. And I'm sure long before that they talked about gas prices. All around the country, all around North America. They tell me that a shortage of processing facilities, that speculation in the global markets are affecting our gas prices here today. The truth is that governments, certainly provincial governments, don't have a great deal of control over gas prices. There is an option that is available, and some of the Atlantic provinces have adopted that. They regulate gas prices. But history has shown us that on average, regulated gas prices are more expensive than gas prices that go up and down with the economy. So what we do is we've been investing heavily, billions of dollars, in public transit, just to give people another option, a viable option, something that's affordable, hopefully something that's user-friendly, that's easily accessible. So that's the approach that we've brought to dealing with the challenge associated with gas prices. Here's something else I want to mention, and then I'm going to stop because I know there's lots of questions. We know that over time, your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren are going to pay more for oil and gas than you and I do today. Oil and gas prices are only going one way. But we know the price of this every year comes down. We know that the price of solar panels that capture the power of the sun and convert it into electricity, every year they come down. The price of wind turbines, which turn like this and capture the power of the sun, the power of the wind, every year they come down. That's why we've been working so hard in Ontario to be at the forefront in North America when it comes to the clean energy industry.
Bill, and then Roberto.
My name is Bill Yankoff. I produce the Macedonian Heritage Hour on Omni Television for the Macedonian community in Ontario. And my question is regarding the deficit. What mistakes were made by this government and previous governments that we got to this position, and what can be learned from those mistakes to get that we got into a $16 billion deficit?
Let's just go through a brief history. When we earned the privilege of serving Ontarians in government the first time in 2003, there was a hidden $5.6 billion deficit. So we passed a new law in Ontario that says you can never go into an election without the auditor telling us exactly what the state of the books are. So that's happened. So we spent a few years cleaning up that deficit. Then we balanced our budget for 3 years in a row. Then the recession came. And we did in Ontario with what they did in Ottawa and what they did all around the world. We borrowed money from international markets and we invested in this economy to stimulate it. We invested billions of dollars in infrastructure. We created thousands and thousands of jobs. When President Obama contacted Prime Minister Harper, and his office contacted our office and said, we're going to have to do something about the auto sector, we said, we're going to have to be there. Didn't have the money, so we went and borrowed that money. And then there were all kinds of people who were losing their jobs, so we created new job training programs so that we might help them get back on their feet in the economy. So we were confronted by a very difficult economic period, and the choice that we made was to borrow money and to stimulate our economy and to keep people working and to retrain those who had lost their jobs. Now for 3 consecutive years, every time we put out a figure for a deficit, we have beaten that target. Now we're into a very unusual period of time. Normally after a recession, the economy tends to rebound rather quickly. And there's a strong period of growth. That's not happening today. And it's not just a function of what's happening here in Ontario. Take a look at what's happening in the US, take a look at what's happening in Europe. All right? And all those are slowing down the usual rate of growth. So what we're doing is making some difficult decisions now to restrain our spending. For example, healthcare went up around 6% every year. Last year, I think it went up 2.5%. Now we're saying it'll only go up 2.1%. So we're going to have to find ways to find savings in the way that we deliver healthcare to help us meet those targets.
So what were the mistakes made, would you say? Because they're obviously, no matter what government it is, there's going to be positive things. And what do you think you could learn from that was done perhaps wrong in
Well,
the
you
last
know,
few years?
I'm going to leave it to the opposition to point out mistakes, because that's their job. But I would argue that the reason that we find ourselves in this position here in Ontario today is because we decided that as a matter of choice, informed by our values, that we weren't going to cut people loose. We could have said to the 400,000 people who work in the auto sector, you're just going to lose your jobs. You're on your own. I grew up in a family of 10 children, 12 people, and my mother impressed a couple of things upon us. Here's one. If he's my brother and he does well, we all celebrate that. If you're my brother and you're in trouble, we're all in trouble. And we all have a responsibility to help out. If that creates challenges for us later on, then we'll find a way to move forward and address that. And that's what's happened here in Ontario.
Roberto.
Roberto Hausman, Latin Life News.
Roberto.
In fact, my question is kind of related to my colleague here. And your speech was very nice and sounds great, and I'm extremely proud of the good things you accomplished. And I'm an extremely proud Ontarian and Canadian. But my question to you is this. You mentioned in your first paragraph that the budget will be balanced in 2017-18. That really seems like a long way. So my question is, what else could be really done to give us a discount? In other words, to make the budget balance in 2014 or 15, let's say. Is there anything else that you think, such as the casino idea, that could be done to get this balanced budget a lot sooner so we don't waste so much money in interest?
Well, I should tell you that one of the things that we specifically asked the Drummond Commission to take a look at, you've heard of the Drummond Commission, we created it at the time of the last budget. And we said, give us your very best advice as to what we might do. And one of the things I specifically asked that they consider is there a way for us to balance the budget sooner than 2017, 2018? And their advice was not to attempt to do that. That it would be that the cuts that we would have to make together would go, remember, more than half the money that we spend goes into wages, goes into salaries, goes into compensation. Who are we paying for? Teachers, nurses, water inspectors, meat inspectors. Start to fire those people, start to compromise our health, compromise the quality of education for our children, compromise health care for our families. So we would prefer to do this in a thoughtful, balanced, measured way, rather than do it in a way that hurts our families and hurts our economy. Now, here's the other point to keep in mind when I say hurts our economy. One of the things we've learned from other parts of the world is that if you move too quickly, if your cuts are too deep, you're going to hurt your economy. You're going to cause job losses, and you're going to have the exact opposite impact that you set out to achieve in the first place. You want this economy to grow. If you pull out government spending in a big way, then that acts as a big brake on the economy, and it really slows down our recovery. So we have to strike a balance between what they call austerity measures and finding ways to continue to stimulate the economy.
Frank.
Frank, who are you?
My name is Frank Attard. I do the Maltese program. So I have 3 questions for you.
3.
Make the tough questions. One of them regarding the seniors,
Yes.
that they're suffering a lot. The second one is about the casino money
where it's all the billions of dollars are going. The third one is about the orange. There's a lot of corruptness in there. Nobody knew about it, no minister knew about it.
Okay, let me deal with these, see if I can deal with them without taking up too much time. Two, let me just talk about one really important measure, maybe two, in our budget that are specific to seniors. As you know, we have a growing population of older people. And when we get older, we use more healthcare. That's only natural. That's what happens, right? And I want to make sure my mother gets all the health care that she needs. So we're doing a couple of things to improve the quality of care available to our seniors in a way that helps taxpayers at the same time. For one thing, we know that it is much less expensive to provide care for you in your home than it is to provide care for someone in a hospital. So we're slowing down spending in hospitals, and we're increasing spending in home care, shifting more funding into the community. So people come to your house and look after you there, doctors, nurses, and the like. We've also, as part of our budget, we have something called a Healthy Home Renovation Tax Credit. And if my mother, for example, needs one of those little elevators that goes up and down the stairs, because she can't go up and down the stairs, or she needs a ramp that goes up the stairs into the front of the house, or she needs a special kind of a walk-in bathtub because she's having a hard time now. There are costs associated with that, and we give you a tax credit up to $1,500 to help you pay for those kinds of things. Again, if I can help you stay in your home, it's much less expensive for taxpayers than to have you in a hospital setting. Casinos. Casinos have generated a lot of money over the years. You may recall the casinos were introduced under the NDP government. Every government since then has moved to be supportive of them. And they have contributed billions of dollars, and they've helped pay for our schools and our health care. We're now pursuing a plan to modernize our gaming system, and we've made it very clear that communities that may be interested in a casino, that you're going to have to consult the people who live in your community and make sure that you have the consent of your community before you approach us in any kind of a sincere way. In other words, if a community doesn't want a casino, they're not going to get a casino.
Where's all the money going?
The money's all going into healthcare. That's all going into education. You have the funding, and since 2003 for our schools has gone up by about 50%. For healthcare by about 50%. The economy's only grown by 30%. Right? So it's a good thing we got those casinos, because tax revenues have not been going up as
As you know, casinos is indirect tax to the workers, to the people, right? It's a direct tax. That's how I look at it.
Well, I understand that. But if we got rid of the casinos, where would we get that money? Where would we get the money? It's got to come from somewhere. Last year, I think 3 million people went to casinos in Ontario, and close to 8 million people bought lottery tickets. So I think Ontarians kind of enjoy that option that's available to them. Orange, you bring up a very important issue. Orange is the subject of some hearings right now at Queen's Park. And I'm very proud of the way that our government has dealt with this issue. The auditor has come in, and he has provided us with some recommendations. We will follow every single one of those. Minister Matthews had ordered a team of forensic accountants to go in and take a look at what's happening in Orange, and the problems were brought to our attention. She then took the matter and said, now this is going to the police. It's now the subject of a police investigation. The minister has introduced new legislation, a new performance agreement, and we look forward to continuing along with the committee hearings. Just to give you a little example, I was telling this to a reporter a moment ago here, to give you a little example of how determined we are to make sure that we fully understand what happened and take all steps necessary to ensure that it doesn't happen again. The minister was asked to come before the parliamentary committee for an hour. It was a 2.5-hour committee hearing. She came at the very beginning and said, I'm here for all 2.5 hours. You have questions for me for 2.5 hours? Ask them. So it's a very unfortunate decision, development over at Orange. I take responsibility, together with my government, for not putting in the necessary oversight measures. Maybe we trusted people too much. Didn't keep a very close eye on them. I grew up in a family where you trust people. Maybe some people you shouldn't trust. So we're going to put in place tougher measures now, bring the necessary oversight to ensure that that kind of activity, that kind of behavior doesn't take place again. I've also said, if we lose any money, we'll take whatever steps we need to do to completely recover any money lost.
Don't say it's Dr. Massa's going to take the money back.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know who was first.
Okay,
but
cool.
Gentleman's agreement, whoever, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I work for a settlement agency which supports immigrants, newcomer immigrants to Toronto City and Mississauga. The name is Polycultural Immigrant and Community Services. I would like to know what is in store in this year's budget for the immigrant support programs.
Well, we maintain, I forget the exact number, but we maintain support for our immigration services, for our bridge training programs. And I think the most exciting thing that we're going to pursue now is we have our new expert panel on immigration that we have assembled. We want to develop the first Made in Ontario immigration strategy that we've ever had. And then armed with that new strategy, we would then want to sit down with the federal government. We're the only province right now that does not have an immigration agreement with the federal government. Under the old agreement, they owe us about $200 million. They've also been cutting some of our immigration services in this province. They're not cutting funding to the provincial government, they're cutting funding to organizations like yours who work on the front lines. We still remain the overwhelming choice, overwhelmingly popular choice for immigrants. Ontario receives more immigrants than 8 other provinces put together. And they stay in Ontario when they come to Ontario. So we will continue to move ahead with our expert panel to develop a strong strategy to ensure that we are getting strong immigration as an economic strategy here in Ontario. We will be very shortly in a position where we will not be able to grow our workforce without immigration. I think our workforce right now consists of about one-third are new Canadians, so it's very important to us.
My name is Anthony Torak from Hungarian Pictures. I would like to ask you back to the budget again. How flexible are you and your government to be able to negotiate with the opposition? Which certain field and area are you willing to negotiate, and which area you are said that's it? No negotiations.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I've made it clear that we must balance the budget by 2017, 2018. We must protect our schools and our health care. We must, as our budget does, create jobs and build a stronger foundation for growth. And we cannot take on new spending. Having said that, I think what I need to ask myself is, what do Ontarians expect of me? I think they expect me to make reasonable efforts to make the government work, not for me, not for the NDP, not for the PCs, make the government work for the people of Ontario. So they expect me to do what my mother would expect me to do with my brothers and sisters. Find a way to work together. Understand that we have a lot in common. We believe in our province, we believe in our future, we want to work together. So I was very disappointed that the PCs, from day one, made it clear they were not interested in any way, shape, or form to try to work with us to improve the budget in a way that they thought was necessary. They just turned their backs on the process. And I think that's unfortunate, and it's an abdication of responsibility. I'll say one thing for the NDP. They have been sincere in their efforts to work with us. And I look forward to receiving their proposals. You may know that they're putting one out every 2 days. That's not my preferred way to deal with it, but anyway, that's their choice. So I'm waiting to have all their proposals in at one time, so I can then carefully consider them one by one and make a determination. But I am concerned that if they keep sending me a whole bunch of proposals, that there will be new costs associated with those. We don't have any money available for new costs. But I think what's important right now is that we are making an effort to act responsibly and to see if there's a way that we can find some common ground. So I will listen, but I will not abdicate the special responsibility that I have as the leader of a government, the leader of opposition parties. I'm the leader of the government, and the government has to keep in mind 2017, 2018, got to balance that budget, no new spending, protect schools, protect healthcare.
Thank you, sir.
Q is next, and then, yeah.
Ms. Kirazwani, I'm a producer for the Iranian television program on Omni. And my question comes back to the economy aspect of the Ontario. Canada, especially Ontario, used to attract a lot of foreign investors. Somehow it's dried up. If your budget or government has any kind of plan to revive that? And also the second part also is that Ontario is fortunate to have many tourist attractions. You talk about casinos, you're talking about Niagara on the lakes. Do you have anything, any plans to promote Ontario at that level globally? Because as we know, we have a lot of products in the areas that you cannot find it anywhere else.
Okay. Thanks very much for the questions. I'm going to better inform you, though, when it comes to foreign direct investment. After California, the world's favorite place to invest in all of North America, and certainly by far in Canada, is Ontario. So when the world looks to invest in North America, first they go to California, and then they go to Ontario. Just a few months ago, Forbes magazine, which is a very important American economic magazine, said that the best place in the world to invest is Canada, because Ontario just adopted the HST. Not an easy thing to do, but if we want to grow stronger, if we're committed to making sure there are jobs for our children and our grandchildren, then we can't only do easy things. Our parents and grandparents didn't only do easy things for us. From time to time they did hard things so that we can enjoy this incredible quality of life and the strong economy. So I just want to assure you that the international investment community is making some very significant investments. You may have heard today. Last week, Ford announced new jobs, Toyota announced new jobs, GM announced new jobs. Today we had a venture capital fund that invested in, I think it was an American venture capital fund. There's no government money in this. That came to Ontario and said, I think it's $100 million going to invest in clean energy technologies, because they believe there's a great future here for new jobs and new ventures. On the matter of tourism, very important part of our economy. It's important to big communities and small communities alike. The Niagara region, for example, Toronto, Ottawa, my hometown, many other parts of the north as well, very important to us. I'll just touch on one aspect. I was talking to Roberto about this on the way, and that's the Pan Am case. It's the single biggest infrastructure being made in Canada right now. Multi-billion-dollar investment. We're doing this in cooperation with the federal government. And one of the things that we're looking forward to doing is ensuring that we make a specific targeted advertising outreach to all the Americas. Sometimes we're so close that we take each other for granted, exactly. So I forget how many, whether it's 250 to 300,000 tourists that we expect as a result of the Pan Am Games. There'll be a special tourism component. Thank you.
I think you were next, yeah.
My question, my name is Laszlo Sándor from Hungarian Pictures. My question is regarding to the sustainable future and about what is the government plan for the next 5 years regarding to renewable energy?
We're very committed to renewable energy in Ontario. We've created some 20,000 new jobs so far. I talked a moment ago about how we know, if we were to talk to our children and grandchildren, we know what's going to happen to the price of oil and gas over time. We also know what happens to the price of of technologies every year. Flat screen TVs, laptops, cell phones, every single year, those technology prices keep coming down. We just announced a new price that we're going to be paying for our clean energy contracts. Those prices are down by, I think, around 15, in some cases 20%. In a year's time, we'll do that again. We'll keep driving those prices down. Oil and gas keeps going up, renewables keep going down. So our plan is to create 50,000 clean energy jobs. Here in Ontario, we're building up a strong manufacturing base. And we want to do for, in Ontario, we're the #1 producer of cars in North America. Not because we're selling cars to Ontarians, not because we're selling cars to Canadians, because we're selling cars to Americans. At some point in time, American mothers and fathers are going to say, we need to clean up our environment. We need to begin to harness the power of the wind and the sun. And we need to say, the people who live up in the north, in a place called Ontario, who make all those great cars for you that you buy, we make great solar panels. We make great wind technologies as well. And we're prepared to manufacture those for you. We're a friend, we're a neighbor, and we want to do business together with you. So we think there's an exciting way for us to clean up our air. You may know that we're the only big jurisdiction anywhere that's shutting down coal completely. Burning coal is easy. It's very inexpensive, but it's hard on our lungs, and it's hard on this planet that sustains our lives. So we're shutting down our coal, investing in clean energy. I think that's the way for us to continue to go. That's the way that we lead.
Premier, my name is Haris. I'm from Newscrackers Online, originally from Pakistan. I have a question. You mentioned about your family about 10 times. And 11 times, I think. So I think the immigrants are also your extended family. So if you think that immigrants, new immigrants especially, they are your extended family, and what the new immigrants want, that is, the first thing is the jobs. So now you have a record premier time spending in Ontario. So what you proposed in your budget for creating jobs for the new immigrants?
Thank you. Well, apart from the training programs and the education programs, which are so important to all our families, you may know that last year we lost 9,000 jobs for people who had a high school education or less. And last year we created 119,000 jobs for people who had a college or university education. So the first thing we've got to make sure is that all of our young people have access to college and university education or an apprenticeship program. You should also know that I mentioned that in our budget we're creating 170,000 jobs. $35 billion is the amount of money we're going to invest in infrastructure over the course of the next 3 years. We're going to invest in public transit, we're going to invest in new schools, we're going to invest in new hospitals, we're going to invest in highways and other kinds of infrastructure to create, that is 100,000 jobs every year. Our clean energy plan is 20,000 jobs. The Pan American Games, I forget how many thousands of jobs that creates. So we have a budget that is very much focused on creating jobs, and we think we know the single best way for us to create those jobs, quite apart from investing in infrastructure, is by investing in the skills and education levels of all our people.
Thank you.
George.
Mr. Premier, excuse me, but I have too many questions. I'll concentrate here on two.
Yeah.
But I'm extending you an invitation to come at any time in my show. I'm the producer of the Greek shows, to discuss the rest of them. One is about the Occupy movement. It seems to me that there are people participating there from all the parties. And it also seems to me that none of the parties have given answers to their concerns and questions, which is the distribution of wealth, a fair distribution of wealth, if I'm not mistaken. That's the first question, and also to get their votes. And the other question is about Bill 13, I believe it is, that enriches the school curriculum with sexual education. That's the Bill 13?
Yes, it is, yeah.
I have heard concerns that we give too much emphasis on the sexual orientation and preferences of the kids instead of having a safe environment, duties and responsibilities of good citizens, and justice, freedom, and that kind of stuff.
Thank you very much for all those questions. The Occupy movement, I think, is an important signal to all of us. And I think it's if I was to try to interpret what those people are telling us, is that they have real concerns about the fairness of our economic system. I think people believe in capitalism so long as everybody who wants to work hard can in fact get ahead and earn a decent living and be able to raise their family and enjoy a good quality of life. And there's a concern on the part of some that maybe the system is not as fair as it could be and should be. I think it's important to keep in mind, because often I think people kind of mix up what's happening in the United States of America and what's happening in Canada. There is a growing gap in Canada between the lowest income levels and the highest income levels. But it hasn't been happening as quickly, and the distance is not as great as it is south of the border. Not to say that we don't have a responsibility to look at this. So we've done something which is pretty unusual in Canada. As you know, we all treasure our health care. And for the first time, I'm not sure any other province has done this, we're now saying if you're rich, you have to pay a lot more for your prescription medication. It used to be in Ontario and in Canada, we would say, well, we all get access to free health care. It doesn't matter whether you have $100 million in the bank when you're 67 or $100 in the bank when you're 67. So now we're doing what I think is fair. I think what is in keeping with the circumstances that we find today. So it's very unusual. The first time ever here in Ontario we're saying that if you are a wealthy senior, in fact we said the top 5%, that you're going to be called upon to pay more for your prescription medication. You asked me about Bill 13. It's an important bill. And it speaks to our values as Ontarians. And I know that a lot of people have paid a lot of attention to one particular aspect of discrimination, and that's sexual orientation. But maybe that's what people tend to do. They get focused on one. But what our bill specifically says is we want our schools to be safe, open, and accepting places for all our children. And you cannot discriminate against them on the basis of their faith, on the basis of their place of origin, on the basis of the color of their skin, on the basis of their traditions, their customs, or their sexual orientation. That's all we're saying. And I'm convinced that parents are supportive of that. They want all their children to be respected. And that's all we're saying. You cannot discriminate against our children. That's all we're saying.
You're next, and
My name is Ilya Neha. I'm the producer of the Young Bathing Show on All New One. Regarding HST tax, since your government introduced it, did you win or did you lose? Do you have some figures?
I don't have any figures with me here right now, but I can tell you that it has been examined by independent experts who have said that it is essentially neutral, because as we increased, as we put in place the HST, we cut taxes for, personal income taxes for 93% of Ontarians. We're now today paying less by way of income tax to the province of Ontario than we did in 2007. And we also put in place a number of new tax credits to help out people in low income circumstances. And we dramatically cut taxes for our businesses. We have the lowest our corporate taxes are now lower than any U.S. state, and they're about average for the European Union. So we worked really hard to try to make sure it's fair and balanced. Moving ahead with the HST is not something that we did in order to become popular. We did it because we thought it was absolutely essential that we do it. We had to catch up to 140 other countries that have a value at. The HST is everywhere in Europe. They call it a VAT. Right? So we knew, our businesses kept saying to us, I can't compete with those people. They have a value-added tax. When are we going to kind of get with the game and be strong in the global economy? So that's why we adopted the HST. It's an important issue of debate during the election. We thought it was an important opportunity for Ontarians to pass judgment. And I think they came to the conclusion that when the McGuinty government did that, they did it because they believed it was important for us to strengthen our economy.
Okay, I've been signaled one more question, but if you guys are really quick, we can, yeah. So
Listo.
Elena, and then, yeah. Elena first. Sorry, Elena.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. You got your headset sensitive. Okay, go ahead. And then Elena.
Néstor Castro, producer of the Hispanic Show. What are you thinking about the suggestion of Mrs. Howard, the NDP leader, who is saying that to charge 500 people who are earning $500,000 and up, taxing these people?
What I've said is I'm not prepared to consider any of her proposals until I have them all in, so I can add the costs up and then make an intelligent decision on the basis of her full proposal. I've asked that she submit the proposal all at once. She's chosen to put it out piece by piece. That's her choice. I accept that, but I've also indicated I'll have to wait for everything to come in before I can make a decision.
Elena Zolotka, the Russian media women's accent columnist. And my question is, what is the role of the provincial government in supporting the women's organizations, initiations, and endeavors?
Thank you very much. I know that there are undoubtedly some funds made available through our Ontario Trillium Foundation, I believe it's called, to help support organizations like that. But let me tell you something we've just done in healthcare as a result of some of the advice that we receive from women. Traditionally, here in Ontario and in Canada, if you have a baby, we say you have to go to the hospital. We treat it as if you're sick, as if you're suffering from an illness. You have to go to the hospital where we look after sick people. It cost us about $5,500 to deliver a baby in a hospital. More and more women, like my daughter today, are choosing, she's not expecting, I'm not making she's not having a baby, this is not a scoop. But as a 30-year-old, I know that her expectation is that she doesn't want to go to the hospital. So we're creating something new here in Ontario called birthing centers. Because women are saying there has to be a place between my home and the hospital. So we're going to start with 2. We're going to see how those work. I'm very confident they're going to work very well. There's a tremendous demand on the part of women to have their babies in those kinds of centers. They're much less expensive for taxpayers. And if there's any reason to believe that the pregnancy is a complicated one, then that woman will go to the hospital, instead of having their baby at the birthing center. So I think that's an important step forward that recognizes the wishes of women, and it's a happy coincidence with keeping our costs down too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ask to give you formal thanks.
Premier McGuinty, thank you very much for your time this evening. On behalf of the members of the Canadian Ethnic Media Association and the board members who are all here today, we'd like to thank you. We have a book, Mosaic in Media, which is a collection of stories, and stories are powerful. We get into people's hearts and into their minds when we can gain access to their lived experiences, and this is what CEMA has done. And if you'd like to take notes in that book, there is a pen.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you so much for your time. I've kept you late. Again, I wish you a wonderful weekend. I hope that you can enjoy a long weekend. It won't be surprising for you to know that my greatest joy in life is my family, as this gentleman mentioned. That's 12 times.
12 times.
So I'm looking forward to spending time